Hi, Kyle from Interfidelity here. Today we're going to talk about the last headphone in my series of reviews of sub $1,000 planar magnetic headphones. This is the HiFiMAN Sundara, and this one is on the low end of the scale of expense at $499. So this is a full-size planar magnetic open acoustic headphone, and it's pretty nice. I did review the mono price. I guess it's the M1060 or something like that. I didn't review it. I did measure it, and it was and listen to it, and it was. I didn't like it at all. There was also the advanced alpha, which I didn't like, and the AR acoustic research AR H1, which I also didn't like. And then I reviewed the Odyssey LCD 2C, which I thought was pretty good, and the Mr. Speaker's Aeon Flow Open, which I thought was pretty good. So this is the last of the list, and it's a dandy little headphone. This is a fairly stylish headphone, especially for HiFiMAN, because I felt a lot in the past that there was kind of a disconnect in the materials and the look of the headphones and the price of the headphones. It seemed a little incongruous, usually the mix of those things. And with this headphone, I think they've pretty much nailed the whole price, performance, comfort, quality of materials, and so on and so forth. It really is a nicely harmonious setup for $499. The headband is spring steel. The yoke arms are aluminum, as is the body of the capsules. The ear capsules here is aluminum. The headband strap is an artificial leather, as is the ear pads. They also have this breathable material on here, which seems to do a nice job of not getting overly warm or something when worn. The yokes, the ear capsules can swivel up and down on the yokes, but the yokes do not swivel forward and back. Fortunately, once you get the positioning of the head adjustment set properly, it remains secure, and I found these a very comfortable headphone, actually, despite the fact that there's no swiveling there. Now that may not hold true for everybody, but my guess is that it's going to be a fairly comfortable headphone for most people. They got this angle on this pretty right. The pads are angled, as you can probably see if I hold them the bottom here like this. They are removable and replaceable, so you can definitely do that. One of the things that's different than the previous models is you can hear it a little bit here, but and the grills don't do it. It used to be that the headband and the grill, the bars on the grills of the HiFiMAN headphones would often ring. And I don't know that I heard that in listening, but this headphone certainly doesn't do that. The only complaint I have, and it's a pretty minor one, is that the sliding of the adjustment is kind of stiff and gritty. It'll probably break in a little bit over time as it gets used, but it's very sturdy once it's set. The cable that comes with it is a 5-foot long cable. It's HiFiMAN claims it's a crystallized copper cable. They have switched to 3.5 millimeter plugs on the earpieces. Previously, most of their headphones had 2.5 millimeter plugs, so I really appreciate that. I do like to see some sort of a recess here, which these don't have, that protects this plug if it does get yanked. But this is an improvement over the previous headphones, and HiFiMAN claims that the The jack on the inside is actually a special design that is able to take some abuse. It certainly seems to fit quite tightly. So that could be so. It has a 90-degree angle plug on the other end of the cable, and the headphone does come with an adapter, and it also comes with a shipping box. It's not the shipping box, it's the product box that has a foam liner that's covered with this satin material, and that's about it. I would have liked to see maybe a carry pouch that goes along with it, but given the price, it's probably appropriate. The sound quality is quite good. In fact, it may be the best treble response, upper treble above 3K, 3 kilohertz treble response I've heard from a HiFiMAN headphone. It's the shape of the curve up there is virtually identical to the Harman target response curve. So the treble response up above 3K is actually quite good. There's a couple of little wiggles up there, but pretty minor compared to most headphones. The sound, I would characterize it generally as a little bit of a cool headphone. It has a little bit more treble. It's a little brighter than I personally like, but I personally like something that's probably a little bit on the warm side of neutral, and I would say this is a little bit on the bright side of neutral, but only a little bit. Okay, I wouldn't call it an overly bright headphone at all, but it's a little bright. The bass response, basically these headphones are flat from 600 hertz down to 20 hertz. So the very typical of a planar magnetic headphone is a very flat response overall in the below 600 hertz. There is a slight rise above 600 hertz, but it's slight, and it goes up to the peak at 3.5K or 3K. That's appropriate. But for me, I think what happens is that even though the treble is pretty much right on the right contour, because of the maybe a lack of presence and a lack of low bass response, because I like it a little bit elevated, it tends to give me the perception of this cool tilt on these headphones. Even though there's a bit of a cool tilt on these headphones, I did find them quite coherent and quite honest and quite good at portraying the whole of the music. I would say that, for example, when you're talking about competing against the Mr. Speaker's Aeon Flow Open, it's got a kind of a broad hump in the upper bass and low mid range, and it's certainly a more colored headphone than this is. It happens to be right in a way that I really like. After I listened to it for 10 minutes, I just love it. But I would say it's more colored than this headphone. It's warmer, and this one's cooler, but this one is more sort of coherent top to bottom, where the Mr. Speaker's there's definitely this upper bass, lower mid range bloom to it, and it has kind of a soft presentation, a little bit like the HE1000. The Odyssey LCD2C that I reviewed not long ago is incredibly dynamic and punchy, and this headphone is not like this. It's not blurry or soft or slow or anything like that, but it's got this unusual characteristic of being sort of a very comfortable and soft and melodic kind of sound. I don't really know the right words, but like the HE1000, it has this very inviting and pleasant softness to the sound, which is pretty cool, actually. So in some ways, but the Odyssey above between 4K and 8K just goes away. So while it's probably better than the Sundara through the presence region and gives vocals a little more heft and weight, whereas the Sundara here is a little distant and kind of floaty, above 3.5K, between 4K and 8K, the Odyssey is kind of goes away and gives it a little bit of a muffled sound and a sort of a warm character up there. Whereas this headphone is just right on target through that area and remains very clear sounding. So I thought this headphone actually does a pretty fine job of top to bottom balance, even if it's a little bit of a cool tilt. Where I like a warm tilt, it's still very, very pleasant. So if you're the kind of person that likes a little bit of a bright headphone, this may be right up your alley. So yes, the HiFiMAN Sundara is going to make it onto the Wall of Fame. At $300 less expensive than the Mr. Speakers and Flow Open and the Audeze LCD 2C, and offering an alternative viewpoint on the sound, being a little cool and bright as opposed to a little warm. It makes a great addition to the Wall of Fame in that area. So I think it's really well worth a listen to these headphones to see if it's got the characteristics that you like in a headphone. And I'm certainly very happy to see this pretty coherent and well-balanced product offering from HiFiMAN. I think it's maybe one of their best, most balanced offerings yet. So that's pretty exciting. All right. I hope you get to hear one soon. You really should try to get to hear one soon. It's a pretty darn good headphone at $499. And we'll see you guys next time.